Stop this funeral. His daughter is alive, and you're about to bury her twice." The shout ripped through the stone church like someone had thrown a rock through glass. Head snapped toward the back. The choir stopped mid-hymn, the last note hanging in the air. At the front, the pastor holding a small silver Bible froze on the words "dust to dust." Pallbearers in black suits stood still by the billionaire's casket, the heavy lid half lowered. Near the aisle, cameras from 3 news stations swung toward the sound. In the last pew, a thin black man, in a cheap dark suit, stood shaking. One arm out, the other hand gripping a young girl's shoulder so tight she winced. "Please," he said, his voice cracking, but clear. "Don't put him in the ground, while y'all still saying his daughter is dead. She's right here." The girl beside him, slim, brown-skinned, maybe 13, stared at the sea of rich faces turned their way. Her fingers twisted the edge of her black dress. Her wide dark eyes slid from the casket at the front, huge and glossy under the high ceiling, back to her father's face. "Daddy," she whispered, "everyone's looking." "I know, Ava," he whispered back, "but we came all this way. I can't walk out now." Up front, a white woman in a fitted black dress with diamonds at her throat stood up slowly from the front row. Her face was pale and sharp, but when she saw the girl in the back, something in her features cracked. Security guards along the walls moved like a dark tide toward the last pew. The pastor cleared his throat. "Sir," he called out, his voice trying to be calm and strong at once. "This is a private service for Mr. Richard Hale's family and friends. We can talk after. That's what y'all been saying for 13 years. The man cut in. "Louder now. After. Later. Not the time." "Meanwhile, my kid's growing up with a lie stamped on her birth papers. And your programs still say, 'In memory of Lily Hale, beloved daughter, gone too soon.' I got proof she ain't gone. So you can have me arrested if you want, but I'm saying this now, while somebody with his blood in their veins can hear it." A murmur rolled through the pews like low thunder. The woman in the front row, Lauren Hale, the billionaire's widow, took a step into the aisle. Her arms held slightly out like she was trying to keep 2 worlds from crashing into each other. 2 days earlier, that same Andreas Cole had been nowhere near stained glass and marble. He'd been in a beat-up silver Honda on the south side of Chicago. His daughter's empty booster seat in the back, the smell of French fries thick in the air. His phone, cracked in one corner, buzzed on the dashboard with a news alert as he waited at a red light. "Billionaire developer Richard Hale dead, at 68. The headline read. A smiling photo of a white man in a suit, gray hair clipped neat, filled the small screen. Darius sighed. "Must be nice," he muttered, more out of habit than real hate. He tossed the phone back on the seat and pulled forward when the light turned green. He had 3 more delivery orders before he had to pick up Ava from her after-school program. And the car was already making that grinding sound again. When he hit 50, he almost didn't hear the next part of the report when it came on the car radio. Was known not only for his downtown towers, but also for his charity work. Friends say he never recovered after the death of his only child, Lily, who was taken from St. Mary's Hospital 13 years ago and later declared dead. He poured millions into a foundation in her name, helping missing children and their families. Services will be held this Saturday at Darius's hand tightened on the wheel. The word St. Mary's Hospital cut through the fog of bills and gas prices and homework like a knife. That was his hospital. The place he cleaned floors in at night, back before Ava. The place where, on a stormy night 13 years ago, an alarm had gone off by the ambulance bay and he had opened a metal door to find a crying baby in a pink blanket. Left under the safe haven sign, that night had stamped itself into his bones. 21 years old, mop in his hand, radio in his pocket, playing slow jams, thunder outside, then the sharp buzz by the side door, the one they'd told him only rang if someone left a baby they couldn't keep. His supervisor had been on break. Darius had jogged down the hallway, heart pounding, and pulled open the door. There, in the metal bassinet, built into the wall, wrapped in a soft blanket with tiny blue birds, was the smallest human he'd ever seen. Brown curls stuck to her damp forehead, her face scrunched, her fists waving. A scrap of paper lay on her chest. "Please love her better than I can," it said in shaky writing. No name, no number. He had called the charge nurse, watched as she checked the baby over, heard the words safe haven and child services. He had gone home that night smelling like bleach and baby shampoo, the echo of her cries still in his ears. He had not known until months later that on that same night, 2 floors up, the rich man on the North Shore had lost his own baby girl. Rumors had floated through the staff room. "You hear about that Hale baby?" a nurse had whispered. Somebody walked right out the nursery with her. There had been police in the halls for weeks, questions, cameras, meetings. Darius, just the night janitor back then, had kept his head down. At home, he had watched the news show the Hales' fancy stone house. The mother's tear-streaked face, the toddler's photo-light brown hair in pigtails, a blue dress, big gray eyes. The word kidnapped had blared across the bottom of the screen. "World's gone crazy," his mom had said, shaking her head. "Lord help that baby." Darius had nodded and gone to his room, where he lay awake thinking about the nameless baby downstairs in the nursery and the rich girl on TV, not even imagining there could be a line between them. A year later, that nameless baby had a name, Ava, after that night. Darius had asked child services over and over about her. At first, they'd brushed him off. "We can't tell you anything," they'd said. "You're not family." But he'd kept showing up, kept asking if she was okay. Maybe it was the way his face lit up when he spoke about her, or maybe some caseworker just got tired of saying no. But when he heard her first placement had fallen through, he'd blurted, "Let me take her. I got a steady job. I live with my mama. I won't let her go." They'd looked at him like he was crazy, a 22-year-old black janitor, single, asking to foster a baby girl. But he'd filled out every form, sat through every class, let strangers inspect his tiny basement apartment. "Why do you want to do this?" one had asked. "You could just walk away." He'd looked at her, thinking of the scrap of paper that had come with the baby. "'Cause somebody already walked away," he'd said, "and somebody came to a hospital door hoping for better. I can't just pretend I didn't see her." Years had passed since then, full of diapers and double shifts, spelling tests and broken cars, scraped knees and bedtime stories. Darius had gone from night janitor to day porter to maintenance tech, then finally left the hospital for a delivery job when the hours meant he could actually see his kid awake. The news about Hale's dead daughter had faded into the background hum of the city. The only time it came up was once a year, on the night of Ava's gotcha day, when she would ask about the safe haven box, and he would tell her, as best he could, how someone had loved her enough to leave her somewhere safe. He never said threw you away. He always said left you at a door God made sure I was standing near. On hard nights, when money was short and his back ached, he would look at her sleeping face and think, "I may not have much to give you, but I gave you a father who stayed." So when that news alert flashed about Richard Hale's death, Darius should have just kept driving. But something made him pull into the parking lot of a strip mall and click on the full article. A slideshow of photos popped up. First Hale breaking ground on a downtown tower, then cutting a ribbon at a children's hospital, then a younger shot of him and his wife holding a toddler with the caption, "Richard and Lauren Hale, with daughter Lily, months before her disappearance." Darius's breath caught. The baby's blanket blue birds on soft pink looked exactly like the one folded in the plastic bin under Ava's bed, the one he had kept all these years, washed and rewashed. His fingers zoomed in on the picture, his heart thudding. In the corner of the frame, he saw a little stitched tag near the edge of the blanket. Hale House Boutique. Handmade. He had seen that same tag on Ava's blanket more times than he could count. That night, after dinner, he pulled the old bin from under Ava's bed. "We going through baby stuff again?" she asked, flopping on her stomach to watch. She loved seeing the tiny socks, the worn teddy bear missing an eye. He lifted the pink blanket thinner now, its birds faded but still clear, and turned the corner to show the tag. Hale House Boutique, handmade. "Remember when I told you about the man whose baby got taken from the hospital?" he said slowly. "The rich guy on TV?" Ava wrinkled her nose. "Yeah. The one who built those ugly glass buildings." Darius huffed a small laugh. "Yeah, him," he said. "They just said he died. They showed a picture of his baby. His baby had a blanket that looks just like yours." Ava propped herself up on her elbows. "So," she said, "maybe lots of people had the same blanket." Darius nodded. "Maybe," he said. But his mind was already racing. St. Mary's only had one boutique that donated handmade blankets to the aid station back then. He remembered the lady who'd dropped off a box, saying, "These are from the Hale House store. For the poor babies." What were the odds that a baby left at the safe haven box with no note but a fancy blanket? On the same night, a rich man's baby was stolen from 2 floors up, would not be the same child. His stomach flipped. If it was true, then everything he thought he knew about Ava's start in life was different. And if it was true, somewhere out there was a mother who had spent 13 years grieving a dead child who wasn't dead. The next day, Darius took a risk. He called a number from an old hospital contact list and asked for Nurse Irene. She had been the charge nurse that stormy night, stern but kind. The kind of woman who remembered everyone's birthday and always had a granola bar in her pocket. "I'm retired now," she said when she picked up, her voice thinner but still sharp. "Who's asking?" "It's Darius, ma'am," he said. "Cole. I used to mop your floors." She laughed. "Lord, you made me feel old," she said. "You still at St. Mary's?" He swallowed. "No, ma'am. I'm calling about that night. The night the Hale baby was taken, and the safe haven alarm went off." The line went quiet. Then he heard the soft rustle of someone sitting down. "I've been waiting a long time for somebody to ask me about that," she said. They met in a coffee shop off the bus line. Irene with a cane and a thick folder, Darius with a notebook and shaking hands. Over steaming cups, she told him what no one had asked to hear back then. "The night Lily Hale was taken, this place was a mess," she said. "Storm knocked out half the lights. Security cameras were glitchy, rich folk screaming at the desk. We had a full moon and a full house." She took a sip. "We got that safe haven alarm around 1 a.m. I sent you to check. Remember?" He nodded. "Yes, ma'am. That's when I found Ava." Irene smiled at the name. "Sweet girl. I never liked that they wrote Baby Jane Doe on her chart," she said. "Anyway, while we were dealing with her, someone must have walked right out with Lily. By the time we noticed, hours had passed. Cops everywhere. The Hales calling lawyers. Administration freaking out about lawsuits." She opened the folder and slid a copy of an old incident report across the table. "There's something I never told anyone outside a few folks," she said. "When I held that safe haven baby, I saw this little crescent-shaped birthmark behind her left ear. Same spot Lily had one in the nursery. Same size, same shape. I'd pointed it out to her mama once. 'Looks like God's thumbprint,' I said. When I saw it on the safe haven baby, my stomach dropped." Darius's chest tightened. He had seen that tiny mark on Ava when he washed her hair, had called it her moon. "Why didn't you say anything?" he asked, more harsh than he meant to. Irene's eyes grew sad. "I did," she said. "I told the head doctor, the hospital lawyer. They told me I was tired, told me I was seeing things 'cause of the news. They said if we put that baby in the middle of a rich family's nightmare and we were wrong, it'd be worse for her. So they sent her through the usual system, and I let it go. I've been hating myself ever since." Darius sat back, his heart hammering. The pieces in his life, scattered for years, snapped together with a painful click. So you think? He couldn't even say it. I think Ava is Lily, Irene said softly. And I think nobody wanted to touch that truth once the Hales declared her dead on paper and built a whole saint story on top. She reached into the folder and pulled out a faded Polaroid. A baby, in a hospital bassinet, a tiny strip of gauze on her ankle, slept with her fist by her face. A little dark crescent peeked behind her ear. On the back, in neat nurse handwriting, it said, Lily Hale, 2 days old. I kept a copy, Irene whispered. Supposed to throw it away. Couldn't. Darius yanked out his phone with unsteady hands and scrolled to a picture from last summer. Ava, at the lake. Her braids wet, her head turned just so, the same curved mark behind her ear. He put the two photos side by side. It was like looking at time folded. The truth hit him like a wave. His girl was the dead billionaire's dead daughter. For a long minute, all he could think was, they're going to take her from me. Images flashed through his mind. Courtrooms, suits, judges, headlines. Billionaire heiress found living with janitor. People might call him a kidnapper, even though he'd done everything by the book. Don't look so scared, Irene said, reading his face. You didn't steal nothing. The system handed her to you. You've loved her. That matters. He put his head in his hands. But his wife, he said, she's been crying over a grave that's empty. She deserves to know. And Ava, she deserves to know who she is. Irene nodded. That's right, she said. Truth gonna hurt, but lies been hurting longer. That night, in their small kitchen, with the paint peeling near the stove, Darius told Ava everything. He laid the blanket and the Polaroid on the table, the birthmark photos side by side. He told her about the nurse, the night at St. Mary's, the missing rich baby on the news. As he talked, Ava's face moved through confusion, shock, anger, sorrow, like clouds across the sun. So you're saying I'm her? She asked at last. I'm the billionaire's kid. He swallowed. I'm saying you might be, he said. We need a DNA test, to be sure, but everything lines up. Same hospital, same night, same mark, same blanket. She stared at the pictures again. Does that mean you're not my real dad? The word stabbed him. I'm as real as it gets, he said softly. I changed your diapers. I taught you to ride a bike. Being a dad is what you do, not what blood you got. But it also means there might be another family out there that's been crying for you for a long time, and you got a right to know them, even if it scares me half to death. They sat there a long time, the hum of the old fridge loud in the quiet. Finally, Ava lifted her chin, that stubborn little move she'd had since she was 2. If she thought I was dead, and I'm not, she said, that's not fair. If I was her, I'd want to know. She glanced at the news article open on Darius's phone, the line about the funeral date. We should tell her, she said, the wife, before they put him in the ground, and act like his whole life is this sad story with no ending. Darius blinked hard. It's in New York, he said. We ain't got plane money. Ava shrugged. We got bus money, she said. And I got a saved-up birthday card from Grandma, with $50. You always say the truth is important. So, we go tell it. 2 days later, father and daughter stepped off a Greyhound bus into a different world. New York air pressed at them, busy and loud, full of honking taxis and tall glass. Ava clutched her backpack straps. Darius held the envelope with Irene's letter and the Polaroid like it was a passport to a country that might not let them in. They found the church from the news on the Upper East Side, its stone towers stabbing the sky, sidewalks around it blocked with black cars and reporters. At the entrance, men in dark suits checked names against a list. One looked them up and down, eyes snagging on Darius's worn shoes, on Ava's too big coat. Funerals private, he said. Family only. Darius swallowed. We're family, he said before fear could stop him. He just didn't know it yet. The guard's eyebrow arched. I don't think so, he said. Darius felt panic claw at his throat. He could turn around now, take Ava for pizza, ride the bus home, and pretend this was all a wild idea. But then he remembered Lauren Hale's face in that old news clip, the way she'd clutched Lily's stuffed rabbit to her chest. He thought of Ava at 7, asking, "Did my first mama want me?" And himself saying, "Yes," even when he wasn't sure. He straightened his back. "Look," he said, pulling out the envelope. "This is from St. Mary's, from the nurse who held his baby. You see that birthmark in the picture? My girl got the same one. Ask Mrs. Hale if she want to risk never knowing the truth about her daughter." The guard hesitated, then snatched the papers and disappeared inside. Minutes felt like hours as they waited on the steps. Cameras pointed, hungry for drama. Ava's hand dug into his stomach rolled. Then the doors opened again, and a different man appeared. He was older, in a black suit so clean it almost shone, with a small cross at his collar, the same pastor Darius had seen on TV. "Mr. Cole?" he asked. Darius nodded. "I'm Pastor Owen," the man said. "Mrs. Hale asked that you and your daughter come inside. But I warn you, son, this is a tender moment. You'd best be sure about what you're saying." Darius swallowed. "I am," he said, even though his insides felt like jelly, "or I wouldn't have come all this way." They slipped into the back pew just as the first eulogy started. The church was full of people in dark clothes and quiet perfume, their grief tidy and controlled. Photos of Richard Hale's life flashed on a screen near the front, him as a young man with a hammer, him shaking hands with mayors, him holding a blonde toddler in front of a Christmas tree. "He never stopped grieving his little Lily," said one speaker, voice thick. "He carried that loss into every boardroom, every gift he gave. Some say it made him hard. I say, it made him human." Ava flinched at the name. "That's me," she whispered, more to herself than anyone. Darius squeezed her shoulder when the last song faded. When the pastor closed his Bible and the pallbearer stepped forward to lower the casket lid, something inside Darius screamed, "Now or never." His legs moved before his brain could catch up. "Stop this funeral. His daughter is alive, and you're about to bury her twice," he heard himself yell, his voice bouncing off stone. Eyes swung. Gasps slipped. Security shifted. He felt Ava trembling beside him, but he felt her stand too. If he was going down, at least he wasn't going alone. He stepped into the aisle, the envelope held high like a strange kind of flag. Lauren Hale turned, her face lined in a way TV cameras had never shown. Grief sat heavy on her, like a coat 2 sizes too big. When she saw Ava's face, something in her eyes lit up, wild and frightened and hopeful, all at once. "Lily," she breathed, the word barely sound. A security guard tried to block her, but she pushed past. "Let him come," she said, her voice suddenly sharp as glass. "If this is some cruel trick, I will deal with it, but if it's not..." She didn't finish. The pastor nodded and motioned Darius forward. He walked down the long aisle, feet heavy on the thick carpet, feeling the weight of every gaze. Ava kept pace beside him, head up, eyes wet dot at the front. Under the stare of cameras and mourners, Darius handed the envelope to Lauren. His hands shook so hard he almost dropped it. "My name's Darius Cole," he said. "This is my daughter Ava. I worked nights at St. Mary's Hospital back then. I found a baby in the safe haven box the night your Lily went missing. Nobody ever connected the two, until now." Lauren tore open the envelope with shaking fingers. She saw the nurse's letter, the Polaroid, the matching pictures of the birthmark. "I thought this was our only photo of her," she whispered, touching the baby picture, then looking up at Ava's face. Slowly, like she was reaching into a dream, she brushed Ava's hair back from her ear. There, clear as the moon on a summer night, was the same little crescent. "Lily," she said again, this time a mix of question and plea. Ava's lip trembled. "My name's Ava," she said softly, "but I got that mark since forever. My dad says it's my moon." The air in the church felt like it had turned solid. You could almost hear people thinking, "This can't be real," even as their eyes told them it was. Somewhere, Darius heard a lawyer's voice say, "We need a DNA test." Another voice snapped, "Shut those cameras off." But Lauren didn't seem to hear any of it. She cupped Ava's face in both her hands, tears streaming down. "When you were a baby," she whispered, "I used to sing you a silly song about your moon. Nobody else heard it. Your father said I made it up." Her voice shook as she sang, barely above a breath, "Little moon behind your ear, Mama's love is always near." Without thinking, Ava sang the next line. The words rose up from some deep place she hadn't known was there. "Little moon, don't be afraid, Daddy's prayers are round you laid." For a second, the whole building seemed to stop. Lauren's knees buckled. The pastor grabbed her elbow. "Richard made that line up," she sobbed. "Only he ever said round you laid. He said it was bad grammar." We laughed. "Oh my God." She pulled Ava into a fierce, shaking hug. It was messy, too tight, half shock, half joy. Cameras clicked without shame. Somewhere in the crowd, someone started clapping, then stopped, unsure if this was a moment for applause or just for breathing. Darius stood there, feeling like the floor had dropped out from under him and he was somehow still standing. A tall man in a dark suit, a lawyer, from the look of him, stepped close, his face tight. "Mr. Cole," he said, low, "this is highly irregular. There are legal processes." Darius cut him off, tired of being told to wait. "I know you're gonna have tests and papers and judges," he said. "I ain't here to argue about money or names today. I'm here 'cause that woman's been mourning a dead child, and my child's been asking if her first mama loved her. I came to tell them both the same thing. She's not dead. Not in the ground. Not on paper. Not in God's eyes. She's been over there on the south side doing homework and singing in the shower and eating ramen." A few people laughed through their tears. Even the lawyer's hard mouth softened a fraction. In the weeks that followed, life turned upside down and sideways, and then, slowly, settled into a new shape. DNA tests, pushed through fast, thanks to money and headlines, came back clear. 99.9% match between Ava and the sample saved from Lily Hale's baby bracelet. Papers ran the story, some with kind words, some with mean ones. Some called Darius the hero janitor. Some asked, why didn't he notice sooner? He tried not to read the comments. He focused on the faces that mattered, the way Ava's eyes shone when Lauren showed her the room that had sat empty for 13 years, full of books and toys picked out for a girl who never slept there. The way Lauren knelt in Darius's tiny kitchen, touching the worn tile like holy ground. "She took her first steps here," she said, voice full of wonder. "Not on marble. On this." Lawyers drew up new papers. Rich people argued in offices about wills and trusts. On paper, she was declared dead, one said. "We built a $10 billion foundation on that." Another replied, "Then we changed the paper." The truth doesn't bend for our plans. Through it all, Darius and Ava kept doing regular things. He still worked, though now part-time. The Hale family insisted on helping with bills, but he refused to quit everything. "I'm still your day-to-day dad," he told Ava. "Money don't change who makes your eggs." Ava started spending some weekends at Lauren's big house, where she had to get used to things like doormen and chefs and people who called her Miss Hale. At first, she felt like an actor in someone else's movie, but when she and Lauren sat on the floor of her old new room, going through baby albums, something warm and real grew between them. One night, not long after the funeral, Darius and Lauren sat on a bench near Lake Michigan, watching Ava and some kids from both neighborhoods skip stones. The skyline glowed. The wind was sharp but not cruel. Lauren pulled her coat tighter, and looked at Darius. "I owe you an apology," she said. "For all those years I never thought to ask what happened at the safe haven box, for assuming the worst of this city, of the people in it." He shook his head. "You were living in a nightmare," he said. "You did what you could to breathe." She studied his face. "You could have kept quiet," she said. "Could have hidden her, afraid of losing her. A lot of people would have." He watched Ava throw a rock and cheer when it skipped 3 times. "I was afraid," he admitted. "Still am, some days." But she kept asking for the truth, and I kept telling her to be brave and honest about who she is. I couldn't look her in the eye and choose a lie for myself. Lauren's eyes filled. "Thank you for raising my daughter when I couldn't," she said. "For standing at that door when God put you there. For crashing a funeral full of people who would have rather kept their sad story neat than deal with a messy miracle." He smiled a little at the word. "Miracles are always messy," he said. They sat there a while longer, 2 parents from 2 different worlds, joined by one girl with a moon behind her ear and a life that had refused to stay, buried under other people's stories. Months later, a new wing opened at the small clinic on the south side. A simple sign over the door read, "Moonlight Center for Missing Children and Families," in honor of Lily Ava Hale. Inside, counselors helped parents fill out police forms, nurses took DNA swabs for free, and caseworkers made sure no report sat forgotten in a drawer because someone was too poor or too far from the news. At the front desk, sometimes, you could see Ava doing homework or scrolling her phone between helping kids find the restroom. On the wall behind her hung 3 photos side by side: baby Lily in the hospital bassinet, toddler Ava in Darius's arms at a cheap apartment, teen Ava grinning between Darius and Lauren, all 3 of them squinting in the sun. People who walked in and saw those pictures often asked the same question, eyes wide. "How did this happen?" Darius would shrug, a soft smile tugging at his mouth. "A door, a storm, a blanket, a stubborn nurse, a brave kid, a loud father, and a God who don't like lies," he'd say. Then, more seriously, he'd add, "It happened 'cause somebody refused to let a rich man's sad story and a poor girl's quiet life stay stuck the way they were." And on the hardest days, when he worried about big money and big press, and the way the world still tilted more kindly toward some than others, he'd look at his daughter laughing with a kid from the block and a cousin from the fancy side of town, and remember that the truth only changes everything when someone is willing to stand up, even in the back row of a billionaire's funeral, and say out loud that a life people have written off is still right here, breathing.